shift change. I was working a double shift that day, and they do like 1,000 people on a Friday back then. You know, I mean, so at 4 o'clock on Friday, the AM team's trying to leave, the PM team's coming on, employees are trying to get shift meals, the bar's already packed for happy hour, and the restaurant's half full. And managers are barking orders around, and time froze. I had epiphany. I said, I love this business. I love the action. This is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. And I went home and wrote out my goals. I was going to go to the CIA. I'd heard about that. Become executive chef at 23. You know, I was 18 at the time.
Yeah, these are your hashtag goals.
General manager at 24, regional at 26, vice president of operations at 30, and president of a restaurant company by the time I was 35. And woke my mom up at 1 in the morning, said, I know what I'm going to do the rest of my life, and I'm going to be in the restaurant business. And she was relieved and excited, and I went to work the next day. So on Friday, I'm the laziest guy in the kitchen. On Saturday, I'm the hardest working guy in the kitchen. On Friday, I got the worst attitude in the kitchen. On Saturday, I got the best attitude in the kitchen. On Friday, I was working for the man. On Saturday, I was working for my future and my career, and never looked back from that point forward, and never got outworked. And I still set goals today. I have a notepad on my desk. It says fourth quarter goals on it because I'm in the fourth quarter of my career, so I still set goals this very day.
Wow.
And preach that to young people all the time, you know, goal setting.
What, when you look at your success, how successful you've been, what do you tell people when you look at, when you go talk to schools? Here I was, I dropped out of high school, I did this, but now, you know, I overcame that, here I am. So it's kind of like, you know, like you said, don't count someone out, and I think it's important for kids, don't count yourself out.
Right.
Just because, you know, you may not have succeeded here doesn't mean you won't succeed in the future. Is that something that you kind of articulate to
all
young
the
people
time.
you meet?
You know, prior to the pandemic, I was probably doing, you know, a couple hundred speeches a year, much less these days, but and sharing that message. And we even have in our company, you know, I always joke, if you meet someone who got fired from Cameron Mitchell Restaurants, you have to pat them on the back because they worked hard at it, you know. So, because you never know, because I use my story. If I would have gotten fired from Max and Irma's back then when I was a troubled youth, who knows where I would have been right now. And fortunately, they just suspended me on probation, and I turned the corner 3 days later, or 4 days later after that. So, and we've had that same story in our restaurants, you know, over the years. You know, we're going to fire someone, we can't get them turned around, so we give them one more chance, and then basically they turn around, and next thing you know, they're leaders in our company. So it is, we're the home of second chances, and you know, I told my kids coming up, you know that neighbor that you don't like, or the kid at school, you never know what's going on with that kid at home, or what, you know, you never know how that kid will turn out. Trust me. So I hate to. Been burned by myself, you know, judging book by a cover, and you know, you end up making a fool out of yourself. So I don't want to do that.
Well, you know, I hear you're wonderful to work for, and what would you say? We'll talk about the culture of your business and how you run it, but working in other establishments and working under other people as you were, you know, growing up.
Sure.
Did you, I guess, figure out what not to do? Like, how did you figure out? Here's bad managing, his bad ownership.
Oh, for sure.
And did you?
For sure. You know, I always say, you know, my dad taught me a lot about being a great dad by not being a great dad, right? You know, you can learn a lot from just as much from a lousy situation or a lousy manager or leader as you can from a good leader. You know, it's all your attitude and how you look at it, number one. Number two, there's many things within the company that are policies or how we do things formulated from my upbringing in the restaurant business. Example of that is, I joke, I think it was Super Bowl III, but I was a dishwasher, and they wanted me to come in and work Super Bowl. I'm like, I want to get the night off to go to a party or whatever. Nope, you got to be here. So I bring my TV and I set up on my dish tank, and
Smart.
Yeah, and we did 20 dinners that night. You know, my stainless steel and everything got wet. You know, I was just, you know, it was hardly so. Like, even then, at 16 years old, I'm like, you know, what's the purpose of this? You know, so we're closed Super Bowl Sundays in our restaurants. You know, so you know, most other companies are, you know, the customer comes first, the guest comes first, and you know, not that I don't care about great guest service. It runs to the deepest depths of my heart. But the real way to
unhappy employees.
Right, the real way to achieve that is to take care of your people, and so many people forget that. And you know, so we say, you know, our company's built by its people for its people. You know, and I literally mean that. We have investors, and yes, you know, but we don't work for them, we work for ourselves. And by running a great company and building a great company, we build value and take care of our investors that way. But they're not the sole purpose of our being, you know. And we want to, you know, we want to make raving fans out of everybody we come in contact with, you know. And first and foremost, our fellow associates, our guests, our purveyors, our partners, and our city in which we live. So
Okay. That's very good. Is that how you just run everything, and that's the culture?
Yeah,
That's
oh,
the
sure,
culture, and
sure.
that's good, because if you have happy employees, they're happy when they meet the people, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
amazing. That is good.
It's the number one question I get. So how
Yeah.
do you deliver such great service
Yeah.
time, day in and day out? And I said, across the country. You know, I said, listen, it's because we take care of our people. Our people are number one in our organization. Our associates come first, and people know how much we care about them. And once they know how much we care about them and how important they are to us, then the company becomes important to them.
Do you stop by your restaurants and meet your employees or
Oh,
visit
sure,
them?
sure,
And,
yeah.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, as much as I can.
Yeah.
You know, I can't be everywhere, but I try
Yeah.
as much as I can and travel the country and see our restaurants around the country. I handle all of orientations, like we're opening in Las Vegas here in another 6 weeks, and you know, so I'll be out in Las Vegas. I'm going out June 1st, and I'll handle the orientation personally for 180 people we're hiring out there, and teach them our culture and our values, and share the company story and my story with them, and endear them and welcome them to the company. And then we have, you know, many lead trainers that come from the company out there. Management team has moved from other places in the company, so that those folks then will carry that torch and inculcate that culture throughout the rest of the time there at Las Vegas. We don't open any restaurant without a number of already pre-existing CMR associates to help spread that culture and teach that culture.
Amazing.
So.
What's it like to be so successful in your hometown? This is where you grew up, where you went to school, you know, where, you know, getting out of school was a little tough, you know, and you come back, you're employing people, you have this, you're just like a legend in the restaurant business and around the world, but in Central Ohio for sure, you know, and what is that like?
Well, that's a tough question to
Supposed to
answer.
be proud,
Yeah,
pride,
oh,
you know,
yeah,
like,
of course, you know, but you know, it is, and I've lived it the past 30 years and really 43 years in the business, and I tell people all the time, it's hard to even imagine. I mean, it's such a needle in the haystack, and you know, that we were able to, you know, go from one little restaurant at Cameron's of Worthington, let alone get it open, you know, and start, you know.
how old were you when you opened?
30,
30, okay.
and it took me 14 months to open that. I left July 11th of 1992. My old job, I was running the 55 group. We had 6 restaurants at the time. And I had a little one-bedroom apartment up in the continent, up on the north end of town. And I left with, I don't know, $7 grand in my IRA, and that was it. And that's all I had. And so the first thing I did before I ever, and I want to be clear, I never wanted to open a restaurant. It was always about birthing a company. I wanted to be president of a company since I was 18, of a restaurant company. So since I was 18. So that was always the goal. And I just figured out, didn't figure out about doing my own company until I had an epiphany here I was in Grandview for me, a friend for a drink on a Friday night, and Chef Hubert was working in the dining room.
Oh, yeah.
I came out of the kitchen with a glass of wine and started convincing with people in the dining room. And I watched him, and time froze, and I was already having thoughts about leaving because I didn't think I would become president of the 55 group at the time. And so I was hitting my head on the ceiling, and I had an epiphany. I said, I'm going to start my own restaurant company. And that was May of 1992, and I left July 11th of 1992. So
So you had that epiphany
Yeah.
kind of after watching Chef
Right,
Hubert,
yeah,
because
so-
he would always come out into
Yeah, absolutely. And so
into the dining
the
rooms. and
first
say hi to
thing I
people.
did, the first few weeks in my apartment, before I started looking for a site or anything, I read a bunch of books. I had poster boards taped all over my walls in my apartment, and magic marker and writing and legal pads and reading and magazines and reading, writing, rewriting, creating our company culture. Somehow I had the foresight to know, because of some of my previous work experiences, you know, that an associate employee first culture would be very important to our success. And so I wrote this culture and values out, and then finally got that done, and finally went about the course of trying to find a location and get started. And the first location I looked at was, I secured, and I did the business plan and raised the money for, was down in the North Market District down here. And then over the holidays, Christmas of '92 into January of '93, the landlord went bankrupt. So bank repossessed the building. I had to go away. They didn't want a restaurant there, and I had to start over. And scrambled, and I found the site up at where Cameron's of Worthington is, up on 161 now. And the landlord there, the owner of the building, was an attorney, and is a friend of my attorney, and took a liking to me, and fast-tracked the lease, and wanted to give me a chance. And we were friends, been friends ever since. I write about him in my book, and he's since passed away, but a great guy. And without him giving me a chance, you know, to start, probably wouldn't have happened. And I finally raised the money. I'd sent all my partners' checks back and doing a business plan, got the money back, and this is now early March of '93, and I wrote myself back a check for the $7,000 I had spent, and I was maxed out on my credit cards. I borrowed money from my family, moved into my mom's condo, given up my apartment, everything. I was down to my last $70, only changed to buy groceries, and I finally closed the partnership offering. I went to the bank Monday morning in March of '93, wrote myself a check for $7,000, and I lived off that until we opened up October 5th of 1993, 14 months later after I left my job to start. And, you know, so this is our 30th anniversary this year, coming up October 5th of 2023, and we opened Cento, which is our fine dining Italian restaurant down in German Village at the old G. Michael's, and which I'm super excited for. I tell everybody I'd put that restaurant in the middle of Manhattan with no problem. It's unbelievable Italian.
And that's open now, or
no,
it's
it
going to
opens
be
in
open?
July.
Okay,
and
yeah.
it's a passion project for us, and we named it Cento, which is Italian for 100, because it's our 100th restaurant we've opened since we started.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You have to have a big grand opening for that one, right?
Oh, yeah,
if it's a
we will,
100
for sure.
one. Okay.
Las Vegas
100.
is number 99, and Cento will be number 100. And we'll have 64 restaurants open. We sold 22 fish markets and steakhouses to Ruth Chris in 2008, and we've closed 14 restaurants of the 100 we've opened over the years for various lease expirations, or we picked a bad site or the bad concept, or where we made some mistakes along the way. But I'll take that 14 out of 100 all day long. We've been lucky. So. Long-winded to answer your question, how does it feel? I can't believe sometimes, we could have failed so many times over the years. You know, can't tell you, you know, several times Thursday night I'd have to panic and borrow money from someone somewhere to make payroll on Friday, and we got ourselves overextended. The Great Recession in, you know, 9 and 10, and crash in 08, 9/11. We had 3 restaurants opening on after 9/11, a month and a half after 9/11. And the restaurants were empty, and, you know, the country was under siege, and it was just, you know.
A lot of hard times.
Yeah,
And
oh my
COVID
goodness.
recently.
Oh, COVID, oh, for sure.
COVID. How did you manage to keep things?
It was hard.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, a lot of sleepless nights and so forth. And, you know, we laid off 4,500 people. You know, we'll have 6,000 associates now at the end of this year, and but we laid off all 4,500, every one of them, including myself. And March 20th of 2020, and, you know, a few of us, handful of us, went to the office on Monday. This is, you know, Sunday, or the week before, and then I went to the office on Monday, and I joke, but it's true, I had to pack my lunch. You know, nobody was open.
Yeah.
So I make my sandwich, my brown bag, and my apple, and my cheese stick, and cookie, or whatever, chips, and come to the office every day, and one foot in front of the other, and a lot of transparency with our people. I wanted to know our people, you know, we're going to save the company, and I want our people to know we're going to have a company to come back to. And, you know, we had to, you know, stave off the bank. We had to take care of our people and get them health insurance, and keep them, you know, alive and okay. And we had to, you know, suspend rent with all of our restaurants. We had to renegotiate leases and ask for rent forgiveness for 56 of our landlords at the time, and, you know, it was very difficult. But the one thing, and I always think the federal government was the PPP loan really did its job with us. You know, some people abused it, obviously. Some people didn't need it, but PPP saved our company, and and did exactly what it was supposed to do. So with that, then I got really heavily involved with national speaking. I was on CNBC and CNN and Fox Business probably 30 times during the pandemic, trying to advocate for our industry. It wasn't for me or the company, it was for our industry. And I think the restaurant business, one of the silver linings out of COVID is I think, people in America, the restaurant business raised in stature. People realized how hard it was and how important it was to the fabric of society. That's where we go meet, we see friends, we celebrate, and not to have that. And Americans were great at the coming back out of it and really tipping our people well and ordering food, trying to help us every corner, every turn they can, and we're pretty grateful for that. So how does it? I mean, it feels great. Listen, I'd be lying if I say I love being Cameron Mitchell. It's and I'm very proud of it. My family I think is proud, and but I love the city and I love this industry, and I do everything I can to give back, to the city and back to the industry that I love, that's been so good to me and supported me and our family, and
that probably feels really good to be able to do that.
And to take care of our people and impact people's lives. We've had hundreds of CMR marriages, Cameron Mitchell Restaurants, that's our acronym, hundreds of CMR babies, and so many success stories, people have been with us 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. We have very, very low or high retention, I should say, low turnover in our business, and it's because again, back to our culture and back to our people and how we value our people. So impacting their lives has been very rewarding to me too, and yeah, it's been not without a bunch of hard work, but it's been very rewarding.